Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining in. We're continuing with our discussions from over the past few weeks. And last week I spoke about attention, silence, and discrimination. Today I have four more topics to discuss that will finish up the section on skills and principles necessary to advance in any endeavor. In this series of lessons, we're speaking of philosophical tenets, and that is information that helps us to understand ourselves while bringing us closer and closer to truth. The topic of indifference is what we're going to begin with today. I've mentioned this topic in the past. In Sanskrit, it is known as vairagya, V-A-I-R-A-G-Y-A, vairagya. It is also known as detachment or dispassion. We believe that we need certain things in our lives in order to make us complete or whole. We believe that outside forces bring us happiness. But for some of us, we know that happiness does not come from anyone or anything else. It comes from within and only from within. Now, that doesn't mean that others are not brought into our lives for a reason, with a purpose. They are. But we are already whole and perfect. It is only our ignorance that leads us to believe otherwise, and thus chase the golden goose, looking and looking and looking outside ourselves. The search is on outside to find what we're lacking inside. But instead of searching outside, what we need to do is cultivate an attitude of indifference to that which is outside of us, so that we can break that spell that something or someone has on us, thus enabling us to see through the illusion. Again, vairagya. As an example, if in the habit of doing something either once a week or every single day for that matter that is mindless, such as watching a TV program, then that's a habit that takes us outside of ourselves, and one that, if approached with indifference, can break us free. On the same token, indifference can come in another form, such as not needing the approval of another person to carry on in life. At a certain point in our lives, we become knowledgeable enough to rely on our own intuition, our own encouragement, and travel our own path. We no longer need the encouragement of others to continue on our quest. We become indifferent to the opinions of others. It no longer matters whether one condones or condemns the path we have chosen. It is our path, not theirs. Staying on the topic of indifference, it is second nature for some to consider appearance and status as important. That only shows we are deluded by societal values that we, as individuals and collectively, have adopted, that says that we must keep up with the Joneses and buy that new outfit for this coming spring because someone on Madison Avenue says it's fashionable. We have been brainwashed, and it's actually comical to sometimes see the results. One of them being working at our jobs so much to earn the extra money to keep up with the Joneses that we did not even have time to enjoy the new purchase because we work so much. That's craziness. We need to gain some objectivity. We need to look at what we have, what we need, and what we want in order to see what will genuinely move us towards truth and happiness. This is dispassion or indifference. This is vairagya. This does not mean we cannot have possessions or go out and enjoy ourselves. Vairagya helps to differentiate between the true objective worth and the false subjective value that we place on objects and people. For instance, we've been taught to value the life of the President of the United States more than any other citizen of this country. The truth is, the President is no more important and no different than anyone else. But we don't live that way, do we? Another example, if any of you have ever seen the Mona Lisa, and I have, it's just a painting. As a matter of fact, after hearing about it for decades and learning of it in school and its brilliance, it was a disappointment when finally I stood in front of it. It's small, it's unimpressive, The other works of art surrounding it are amazing or not, depending on the perspective. But the point is this: if we think the Mona Lisa is invaluable and the most amazing of all paintings, then we have bought into the concept of levels, particularly the one surrounding this particular object of art, and are no longer indifferent towards it. But our values have nothing to do at all with the object. I should put it this way: the object has nothing to do at all with our values and our value system. Our values are false, ego-based coverings made up by us, part of the veil that covers our true nature. It's how the entire stock market around the world works. The value of each stock is made up based on the collective value assigned via emotionalism. We need to learn to differentiate between that which matters, the unchanging real self, and that which does not matter, the continuously changing events that are ultimately unreal. Treating pleasure and pain, for instance, in the same manner is a true example of vairagya. The falsities associated with pleasure are the same as those associated with pain. When that is understood, vairagya and more is understood. Now, onto the subject of witness or observer. I'm going to give a brief comment on this subject, and that is, being the witness or the observer is a step in the right direction from that which many of us believe ourselves to be, the participant, or for the majority, the victim. And although the witness is more closely aligned with reality, it is still ultimately not who we are. It is not the absolute truth of the self. Witnessing is relative to objects witnessed. There is a subject and an object. Both are mental creations. So since there is a subject and an object, there is duality that exists, even at the level of witness. Then obviously being the witness is not the end goal or the highest level of attainment. Yet it is a level to strive for when first meditating, to help us learn that who we are is not just the actor, the participant. The highest level is when our spirit merges with the overall spirit. The ego disappears entirely, and we become one with that which is. Now, on to the next topic, which is keeping good company. When we talk about the subject of keeping good company, it would be helpful to know that this concept extends to every facet of life. The people we associate with, the music we listen to, the food we eat, the type of art and literature we connect with, spiritual works versus trivial data. The music we listen to, for instance, classical, let's say, versus heavy metal. The food we eat, organic versus non-organic, art versus graffiti, fine literature versus fiction, spiritual works that uplift versus trivial data that fascinates, but it doesn't uplift. These comparative examples may be deemed as judgments, if not mere opinions, but in the Advaita Vedanta philosophy, they are not looked at superficially. From these comparisons, one may interpret that classical music is good and heavy metal is bad, but it's not that at all. Rather, the comparisons are made relative to something called the gunas, the three qualities associated with everything: matter, thoughts, and feelings. So classical music is sattvic, from the word sattva, S-A-T-T-V-A, whereas heavy metal music is rajasic and tamasic. Sattvic is the highest of the three gunas. It is associated with peace, truth, wisdom, unselfishness, and spirituality. Rajasic is associated with animals, activity, emotionalism, base desires, selfishness, and passion. Tamasic, the lowest of the three gunas, is associated with inanimate matter, laziness, inertia, heedlessness, and death. So studies have been done that show that families that listen to classical music adjust to life in a much better fashion, educationally, professionally, and in relationships, than those who don't. This was based on a 30-plus year study. Classical music, therefore, is sattvic, not therefore because of the study. The study was done thousands of years after these terms were come up with. People came up with these terms, rather. Now, those who listen to heavy metal tend to do poorly in many areas of life. And if anyone is an addict who listens to heavy metal, they will return to the addictive substance 100% of the time. Again, another study that was done. Heavy metal is rajasic and tamasic. Similarly, quality literature leads to a more uplifting state of mind, while fiction merely causes time to pass, if not waste. And while fiction may stimulate manas, the lower mind, stimulate your passions and your emotions and your desires, and we've learned in the past, those are not where it's at. It does little, fiction does little to enhance the functioning of buddhi, the higher discriminating mind. So the comparisons are not merely matters of opinion. Ultimately, it is beneficial to associate with those who are wiser, with a brighter light. Life can be challenging, and sometimes it seems as though we are swimming upstream, and that's because some of us are swimming upstream against the majority who are swimming downstream at a very fast clip, mindless of where they are going or who they are. And now the last topic, obstacles. Obstacles are those frightful things you see when you take your eyes off the goal. That's from Henry Ford. Obstacles are those scary moments that occur when you listen to someone who doesn't know what they are talking about. There are all kinds of obstacles that result in problems in our lives. There are all kinds of obstacles that result in challenges and opportunities. And there are numerous obstacles that result in blessings. Each one of these are of the same nature, but are viewed differently depending upon one's beliefs. If someone is of a lower vibration, that person will look at obstacles as problems almost all the time. If a bit higher on the map of consciousness, then those obstacles that were once problems are now challenges and opportunities. Kind of exciting. And if one is advanced enough, every obstacle is a blessing, a step forward on the educational path to enlightenment. They are looked forward to, every single obstacle, because they're going to teach us something new. Now, some people postulate that the road to enlightenment is fraught with continued study, tedious meditation, extreme tests, and a very boring life. But there is nothing boring about any of it. One who is on the path to enlightenment is not only excited to be doing this work, but is also someone who is fully present, enjoying what this illusion has to offer, while remaining dispassionate. Not only that, once enlightened, there are no attachments and thus no guilt. If no guilt, no pain and suffering. That is a cool place to be. Relatives and friends often object to this path, citing selfishness, or if attacking from an altruistic perspective, noting the amount of suffering going on in the world and how we should be tending to that rather than our own needs. In these situations, it's not a good idea to say to them, there are no others, or this world is an illusion anyway, as these types of remarks don't go over very well. Perhaps the biggest obstacle given by most people for not pursuing a more spiritual life is, I don't have the time, or, well, I don't have the time. Well, since all of us are on the same planet, we do all have the same time. So that can't be the answer. It's an excuse. The real answer is, I don't want to, or I'm not interested. And those are valid reasons, valid responses. But for those of us on a path that has more depth than just having fun, We have more than enough obstacles from our own ego mind than we will ever get from the opinions and perspectives of others. And with that, I finish my time with you and wish you a very happy and peaceful day. Thank you for joining in. It's been my pleasure.